So, every right that you have has a responsibility. If you go into a theater, everybody says that it's against the law, that your freedom of speech is limited and you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. Wrong! You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater if there is no fire. Why? Because you are responsible for all those people running out of the theater, tripping over each other, breaking their legs, and maybe getting hurt. You are also responsible to the theater owner for all the money that he lost when those people didn't get to see the movie. And you are responsible to each of those people for the money that they paid to see the movie, and you interrupted it, by exercising your freedom of speech. Now, if you are in the theater and all of a sudden you look under the seats and you see a fire, are you violating, anybody's rights by going, fire? No, you could be a hero. You can actually get everybody out of the theater and save everybody's life. So yelling fire in a theater is not a limitation on your First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. What is a limit is your responsibility not to hurt anybody physically with what you say. Now, if I say, gosh, you're really ugly, did I hurt your feelings? Perhaps. Have I, extended or overextended my right to freedom of speech? No. I have a freedom of speech to say anything I want, even if you don't like it. That's what freedom of speech is all about. We're going to talk more about that when we get to the Bill of Rights. This topic is all about rights and privileges. A right you don't have to ask. A privilege somebody else of higher authority is giving you permission. And you have to understand what are rights and what are privileges. Rights derive from property. Do you have a right to walk into a restaurant and say, I'm hungry, feed me, for free? Do you have a right to eat? No. You have a right to eat if it's your food, if it's your property, you can put it anywhere you want, even down your throat. But you do not have a right to anyone else's property. That is a contradiction in terms. If it's not your property, you don't have a right. So you cannot go into a restaurant and say, feed me for free, because the food is not your property. It belongs to somebody else. Do you have a right to free health care? No. Where does your health care come from? Are you going to walk into a doctor's office and say, cure me for free? No, somebody's got to pay that doctor. You want somebody walking into your office and saying, okay, I want you to provide service to me for free? You wouldn't do it. So why would you go into somebody else's office and demand service for free? You say, well, I'm not demanding service. The doctor's getting paid. By who? Well, the government or the insurance company pays the money. Really? Where does the government and the insurance company get their money? From somebody else. So do you have a right to somebody else's property? No, not even if the government is giving it to you. So you do not have a right to health care. You do not have a right to your children's education. You do not have a right to anybody else's property. You only have a right to your property. If you worked for it, you built it, you acquired it, this is mine. I worked for it. It is not yours. And that's where rights draw the line, from property. Anytime you have a question about rights, ask yourself who owns the property. Does anybody have any questions on property, rights, or privileges?
So when are you going to have your allodial title class? How close are you to having that thing ready?
Not very close. I'm doing research. I do have books that tell me how to do that. And I have several people who want that particular class.
Yes, and we are one of those people when you get there.
Okay.
Well, if we can't own the land, do we have to pay taxes on the buildings that we put up on it? Or just the land?
Now, you own the buildings.
Right.
Once you have paid for the buildings, you've paid for the buildings, and that's, you get the title to the buildings. But you don't own the land, which is why they are able to continually collect taxes from you.
Yeah, but they tax the buildings on the land.
Only until it's paid off. Once you've paid it off. My parents own their own home, and the bank note is gone. That brick house belongs to my parents. Now they can dig it up and take it with them. That's fine, but they do not own the land that house
sits
on.
Put up a shed.
Whose land are you putting the shed on? It's not your land. Unless you can show me the allodial title to the land, it's not your land.
So they're charging me for that building I'm putting on that land?
They're charging you rent for putting that building on their land.
And they base the amount of rent by the quality of the building on it.
Well, they can base that rent on anything they want. It's their land. They don't have to have a good reason. They say, well, you got white hair, so this week people who have white hair pay a 10% increase.
They just make the reasons look good.
They invent reasons that sound plausible, and we go along with it. But you do not own. If you're paying property taxes, you do not own the land. This is another fallacy that we've had. We've taken that for granted for so long that we don't even question it anymore.
Let me give you paying taxes because I don't know any better?
Yeah.
If I know better, I don't have to pay taxes?
Basically, that's true.
Will they explain it to me then, that it's because I don't know?
No, the government is not doing anything for your benefit. So they are not going to help you at all. In fact, they are going to make your life as miserable as possible. And they are very good at that. So you have to know it, and you have to assert your rights. The Bill of Rights says that you have freedom of speech and freedom of religion. If you stand up and start talking and I say, sit down and shut up, and you do you have freedom of speech? You say, well, gosh, it's written right over here. So what? The Bill of Rights did not give you your freedom of speech. And it's not freedom of speech if it's only the stuff that I agree with. If you and I agree, well, then you don't need freedom of speech because we're cheering for the same baseball team. It's when you get up and say something that I don't particularly like, and I try to shut you up, that you go, no, I'm not going to sit down. I am going to stand here, and I am going to say what I think. I have freedom of speech, and I'm willing to fight for it. Thomas Jefferson said that you only have the rights that you are willing to fight and die for. So you have to know your rights and you have to assert them. And again, once we get to the Bill of Rights, I'll give you a little anecdote that shows that. As far as allodial title, let me give you a little bit better example because it's easier to understand. When you purchase a car, how many people purchase a car paying cash? That's good. If you can pay cash for a car, that's great. Did you also get the manufacturer's statement of origin? No. Well, then you basically wasted some of your money. Every automobile that comes off the assembly line has a piece of paper associated with it, a birth certificate for that particular car. And it is called a manufacturer's statement of origin, or MSO. Now, most of us who are mere mortals, we go in and we buy a car with a bank loan. Now, the bank pays the money, and we get a payment coupon book from the bank. Now, that MSO generally is transferred to the state. The state will microfiche it and then put it through the shredder. So the MSO no longer physically exists, it's just on film. Now you spend 3, 4, or 5 years paying off the car.